To be an excellent program for you.
I hope so.
All right, well, we'll find out. Please.
All right, thank you. Really appreciate the invitation to share a meal and to share with you about the university libraries. Thank you to Rand for that introduction that I'm going to have a very hard time living up to, but we'll give it a shot. And I also really appreciate you kind of turning your agenda around a little bit. About 2 weeks ago today, my spouse had rotator cuff surgery, so I need to get her to her follow-up checkup. So I'm going to be leaving pretty promptly at about 1 o'clock. So let me share with you a PowerPoint, but I really kind of want to use this as a to provide me some talking points, and certainly welcome questions at the end, certainly, but don't hesitate to interrupt me and ask questions as I go along. I came to the university in 2009 as the archivist and special collections librarian, and then in 2013 was appointed as Dean of Libraries. And Rand was kind of asking me a little bit about my background, and I somewhat reluctantly applied for the position of Dean of Libraries. I love archives and special collections, and my early mentors at Duke and Dartmouth had really instilled upon me that as libraries head into the 21st century, it's really what's unique about our campuses, about our colleges, about our universities, that libraries are entrusted to preserve and to share. So that's very much instilled in me. And though I'm Dean of Libraries now and my job is much broader than archives, I think that some of those same principles really kind of come through in how I think about the university libraries here at USD. So let me just kind of see if I can do this somewhat logically. There we go. So just a little bit about where we're going to head in the next 15, 20 minutes. I want to just give you a broad overview of the university libraries. I know many are familiar, but some may not be. I like the word confluences, both personally. My wife and I are both New Englanders. I've got roots in Iowa, but we both have roots in New England. Spent a lot of time kayaking and canoeing on lakes and rivers in New England. And one of the things that's always attracted me is when two rivers come together. And I think there's a metaphor there for libraries. And then I want to talk a little bit about connections. We have excellent librarians here at USD, and they're very focused on students and connecting with them, and want to just kind of highlight a few places there. And then no librarian in the 21st century can stand up and say that we don't have challenges. We definitely do. And I kind of want to point out a few of those, and then certainly entertain questions. So when I talk about the university libraries, I'm talking about ID Weeks Library right behind me, and then the Wagner Health Science Information Center up on the medical school campus in Sioux Falls. Between the two libraries, we've got about 13 professional librarians and 20 civil service staff. And we are very blessed with very fine graduate assistants, tech fellows, and student assistants. They really kind of make us go, basically. Without the students, it would be very hard for the other 30-some people to do their job. We also, USD has some of the best political collections in the state. This past Saturday, there was a book launch for the third volume of the South Dakota, or the Plains political tradition, and USD was very well represented in that book, in the conference, with some of our papers there. So currently we have one consultant that's attached to the library with some of the political collections. One academic leader is me, so this is my job, basically, to try to keep us pointed all in the same direction. Our mission is certainly about the university, about the schools and colleges here, the research program, the teaching program. Likewise, because USD is the lead institution on the Biological Research Infrastructure Network grant out of NIH, and also because of the Wagner Center and the 501c3 aspect of the Wagner Center, we really do serve the biomedical and health science communities in South Dakota. On the Wagner Center side of things, Sanford Health is one of our major partners. SDSU, JACs rely on USD libraries, pharmacy and nursing. USF, Mount Marty, health science programs, as along with the VA hospital, rely on USD. So our mission's both the university and really kind of the biomedical community here in South Dakota. Every organization has strategic directions. We are very fortunate right now. Two of RAND's MBA students are working with the Wagner Center. And I'm sure they're going to pick apart, and thankfully so, how we think strategically and how we market and talk about ourselves. But when you look at these 6 points here, there's things that are very much tied to the traditional kind of bricks and mortar library. Number 6, last but not least, buildings are still very critical to libraries. At my past institution, the president was talking to me one day as we were raising money for a new library, and one of the major donors says, well, why do we even need a new building? You know, everything's on the internet. Yes, everything is not, well, there's a lot on the internet, but everything that we need is not necessarily on the internet. Library buildings are very important to students' academic life. And we could go on up the list, I won't, but you can get the sense here. As much as our objectives are important to me, who we are as a faculty and staff in the library is really important to me. I really, every day when I come to work, these things are on my mind. Maybe not directly, but certainly in the background. So these are really, this is the heart of our faculty and staff at ID Weeks and the Wagner Center. So a few things about the library that may surprise you. First, not everybody knows that the Wagner Center is part of the USD libraries. Wagner Center is a hidden gem. Again, Professor Wergen's students are helping to help us kind of get that hiddenness kind of dealt with a little bit. ID Weeks is the kind of the flagship for the library services here at USD. We also have remote storage, at least for right now. I won't go into the details. At School for the Deaf up in Sioux Falls. Political collections are there, as well as some other large archival collections that are stored there. And then way down here in the corner, if I can get the mouse to work, you may recognize this, you may not. This is the University Center in Sioux Falls. So we provide library services there, particularly in the last 3 years as USD has focused more on, say, the associates program and some other programs at the UC. The library stepped up and provided library services there. And this summer I sat down with the 3 librarians who hold, between the 3 of them, hold about 12 to 16 hours of office hours there. And what I learned, I looked at all the stats, but what I learned as I listened to their stories is, as you might well imagine, we're dealing at the UC with a lot of first-generation students and sometimes first-generation South Dakotans. And so it's not the typical, I'm looking at Joe Edlin, can you help me find this resource? Because Joe did a lot of that, his 30-plus years. But it's also really helping them to think about their assignment and how to approach it. So our librarians have kind of got this aspect of an academic support staff member as well as a librarian when they're at the UC. And that aspect of the services continues to grow. And we got the Wagner Center right down here in the bottom corner. Confluences. You may recognize this image. I think comes from the U.S. Geological Service, where the Mississippi and the Missouri come together. And I really still believe that people and buildings are still essential to libraries. What we've also seen in the last 2 decades is technology. I started librarianship in 1991. Thought it was really cool when I could do a little bit in DOS and could send email. We're way beyond that now. But the people and the places have not gone away. And so really, when we think about librarians now as we head into really well into the 21st century, I think it's still going to be about people, places, and the technology. When I think about who our librarians are, they're all of these on any given day. We are really called upon as teachers, consultants, problem solvers. We have some librarians who have a deep interest in research. We're really trying to develop our leadership team within the library. Librarianship has become a more complex and I would say actually more challenging profession as we kind of move on into the 21st century. I'm seeing some really sharp younger librarians come into our faculty here and really enjoy working with them. They've also got very seasoned and experienced librarians to work with. So when I'm going to point out just a couple, kind of try to make this concrete. So teachers, our librarians actually work with the English program here at USD. And pretty much every first-year student has at least 1, but maybe up to 3 classroom sessions with a librarian leading them, helping them understand not everything is on Wikipedia. Wikipedia may not be bad, but there's a lot more. When I still teach a little bit, I usually lead off those classes saying, if you're my stockbroker, if I have a stock portfolio, but if you're my doctor or nurse, I want you to use the resources for that discipline, and I want you to use the best resources. So here at USD, we try to put those resources into the hands of the students, and then hopefully, as they move on into their professions, know how to ethically and wisely kind of navigate the information landscape out there. And then I'm going to move on down to problem solvers just real quickly here. More and more, the federal government is asking institutions to manage their data. The library is getting increasingly involved in that. This kind of goes back to the special collections librarian in me. It's not just about old papers and old books, but what's unique to USD is the data that's being created in our labs and in our social science departments. And the library is called more and more, along with IT, to help kind of manage that. And it's very kind of interesting problems based around how to make sure that these things are preserved and permanently available. New services. I'm going to kind of start up in the corner here. In 2013, when Provost Staben was here, he asked me if we would be willing to both administratively and physically house the South Dakota Oral History Center. It was in the basement of the Arts and Sciences building, as some of you may recall. And it was living on soft money, essentially, and the soft money was running out. So that was an interesting challenge to try to find permanent funding. And by 2015, we had accomplished that piece. Susan Tuvey had helped land an endowment for a graduate assistant. Was able to find permanent funding for a curator, and you see Dr. Sam Hurley up there listening to an interview while at the Oral History Center on the 2nd floor of ID Weeks. Tomorrow, weather permitting, I'll be at NEH meeting with program officers about major grant funding for the Oral History Center. And this is a real gem, 6,000 interviews that date back to recollections and stories that date back well into the 1890s. I've already talked about the University Center. That was really, our services there were launched, or current services launched in 2015. And if you go on the University Library's website, we just got our fall newsletter out. Our digital projects group, which when I talked about our students earlier on, our digital projects groups got faculty librarians, staff, tech fellows, graduate assistants, and it's a fun group. I try to kind of keep my hands off of them and just let them work, and they come up with some really good solutions. One of the graduate students, we were trying to deal with a large transfer of the Janklow files, and the company I was working with, OCLC, wanted $14,000 to do the transfer of data, and a graduate assistant from computer science was actually in the library at that point. And he says, I think I can write a program that will get this done if OCLC will give me access to their servers and so on. Sure enough, he did that, and he more than earned his stipend that year, obviously. And then, you know, the Digital Public Library, our digital collections are available in this kind of international repository. We're right now we've got about 2,000 digital objects in the DPLA. And this fall, a little bit later in the fall, probably on into October, November, we'll be launching RED, a place for our faculty and our students to really showcase their research, or a place to put their data. So please watch for this. This will be coming up later this fall. A little bit about buildings. Really, I kind of cut my teeth on library building planning over in Iowa at Northwestern College when I was hired as library director there. And in that time, I started reading the former Yale librarian turned consultant, Scott Bennett, had a couple chances to meet with him and talk with him. And really impressed upon me, and I think the librarian profession in general, that our collections were starting to really crowd out the people in our libraries. And so I was really glad when I got to USD, the Academic Commons project was underway. And that's a decade old now, where there's not much for collections on the first floor. They're on the second and third floor, but it's a very busy, vibrant student space. And once I don't do so much of this anymore, but I used to do some consulting for libraries in the area. And I'd walk into libraries and they'd be dead quiet, and including SDSU. And one time I was telling President Abbott this, and he said, but I said, that's not the thing here at USD. Our library is busy, busy, busy. And I think it's a testimony to President Abbott and others when they had the vision for the Academic Commons. That doesn't mean we don't have collections in ID Weeks. We do. Second and third floor is still very much about collections. We continue to try to make more space for students, and accessibility is becoming more and more of a concern for us, ADA, accessibility and compliance. Just a couple images here. I love that some of our librarians work with the University Art Galleries group and faculty around campus to sponsor lectures and readings and so on right in the library. Just a couple more images here. I think one of the next big challenges in ID Weeks is how we plan for special collections, essentially. And the images here just represent different aspects of the program. Climate control is a very big issue, and we need more workspace for our staff. We need more teaching space when students out of history, Native Studies, English, fine arts come to special collections for projects. And our collections continue to grow. Some recent additions in the last 2-3 years, the Tim Johnson papers, as well as the United Sioux Tribe records kind of represent two of our major collecting areas, politics and Native American, the Native American experience here in South Dakota. The Wagner Health Science Center underwent some light renovations back in 2014. These diagrams just kind of represent that project, and I think we're right on the verge of going through another set of more, I'd say, substantial renovations in 2019, 2020. This is not Wagner. These are just images of other health science libraries. But our focus, I think, in this next renovation is really going to be about student space up at the Wagner Center. Technology. I'm kind of getting short on time here, so I can't go too deep into this, but the thing I really want to point out the most is strategic partnerships, and particularly here on campus. The library and the IT work very closely together. I think we have a really healthy, productive relationship. We call on each other for problem solving. We're noticing more and more that the Board of Regents is calling on USD libraries and USD IT together for particular projects. And I think it speaks well of USD and the collaboration between the two areas. So I'm going to highlight our couple aspects out of our health science library program. I'm not trying to just solely focus on them, but given time, I thought this is how I would kind of package this. Last year, we had an outside consulting firm conduct a user survey for us, not only within USD, but also the other Wagner partners like Sanford Health. And this comment is really just a piece of a number of comments about one of our health science librarians, and you can read it, but it really is the tip of the iceberg about comments I see about a lot of our librarians, both at Wagner and down here in Vermillion. But this one really stuck out at me, and there was another comment that we should preserve Anna. I don't know that she wants to be preserved, but you know, the heart of that comment was, you know, this is someone who really enables me to do my work or enables me to do my studies. And that's what I love to hear. And our health science team in general, there's 3 health science librarians up at Wagner, 2 down here in Vermillion. They pretty much knocked the ball out of the park with the graduating med school class of 2017. You can kind of see the national average rides right around in the mid-80s, and our average was kind of riding around in the mid-80s as well in terms of user satisfaction, and bumped up to 93%. I don't know if they're going to be able to keep clearing that bar. Actually, it's a pretty high bar. And again, our health science librarians are just representative of our librarians who are working to make connections across campus and outside of campus. It's truly a very dedicated group of faculty and staff. So, I mentioned my New England roots, I love the Midwest. My wife and I are blessed with 3 children, and we truly, really enjoy the Midwest, Midwest living. But if there's 3 things we miss about New England, you've already kind of heard me talk about one. Water, clear water, and water's not supposed to be brown, I'm sorry. And mountains. This is Mount Washington. I've hiked it a number of times. And then the third thing's our families. Our parents and our siblings, our nieces and nephews are all primarily out in New England. But we really do enjoy kind of Midwest living, but also when we get back, love seeing our families, going hiking, going kayaking and canoeing. But why have this image here, beyond just the biography, is really to kind of signal the challenges that academic libraries, that USD libraries face right now. But first and foremost, I've been blessed with very good leadership at the university in my time here. President Abbott, now President Gestring.
dedicated faculty and staff in the library, but across campus. And then increasingly, we're seeing more alumni and friends of the library or others that really kind of think about the library. The foundation's been very helpful in that endeavor as well. But you can see the challenges. And the one slide that if you're on the faculty here at USD, that's not here, but you've probably seen me put it up, is a pie chart that shows that we spent about $2.4 million leasing information. It's kind of a crazy concept. And that 2.4 goes up by 5% every year at a minimum. And that is an extreme challenge for the Wagner Center Board of Directors, for the university leadership here, and for the Brin Research Group as well. So that's at the top of the list of challenges. It's something I end up having to spend a lot of time on. Facilities. ID Weeks celebrated 50 years of kind of being in existence last year. The new part dates back to 1994. The Academic Commons renovation I talked about is already a decade old. There's a lot that the building's very sound, but it needs a little TLC, to put it mildly. And that TLC is not just about looks, but it's really to encourage student learning. I've already kind of pointed out Rand a couple times here. Our biggest challenges were a small staff, we're busy building, busy serving the campus, and talking about ourselves is not a strong suit, and it's certainly not mine. So we need to really build awareness of library services. So we've got the MBA 781 class to help us coach us a little bit on that. And then there's really kind of what I would call signature or programs, the Oral History Center, Archives and Special Collections, our Health Science Group. I think we really can kind of play in the national field with some of these programs, and certainly got support in the university with the Wagner Center Board of Directors to do so. So I will stop there. Would be glad to entertain questions. Yes, either.
What percentage of time does your staff spend on digital issues?
That's a great question. I don't think I've ever thought about it that way. Everything from kind of solving basic access issues to actually building digital collections, it's, collectively, it's probably more than 50% of their time. That's an interesting question. Bob?
I had a question on the strategic goals that included inclusive excellence. I wondered if you could take 2 minutes to say what the library goal is.
Okay. So one is in hiring, kind of from my desk, so to speak. We've had some success in recruiting librarians out of diverse backgrounds. So that's certainly one of our goals. The other is really kind of, I would say, more diversity-based programming. And a piece of that is really, from the library, is kind of a social justice aspect of it. A lot of our exhibits, really, in the last couple of years, have been kind of focused that connection between diversity and social justice, gender, ethnicity matters, and things like that. So thank you for that question. Thank you. Yes.
I want to compliment you on Steve Johnson, and he is going into the classrooms and showing the students online research and access to databases. He's really good at it. I bring him in every semester for my classes. I also want to compliment you on your very efficient and effective library loan process, so that rather than amass large collections of books, you have the ability to reach out and touch other institutions and virtually get any book a student or a faculty member wants within a few days.
Thank you very much.
What is your single biggest problem you see 5, 10, 15 years down the road for USD libraries?
It really is the increasing cost of scholarly information, scholarly journals. Costs, like I said, go up at a rate at least 5% a year. I think we, as a campus, our next really big hurdle is to try to really get the Board of Regents to think about this systematically. Each campus is managing the librarians do wonderful jobs of trying to collaborate and work together to solve it, but the publishers kind of beat us at every turn. Yes?
You have 30 seconds in an elevator and somebody asks you why we should defund university libraries and just have them use Amazon. What do you say?
Can you repeat? I didn't quite hear the whole question.
You have 30 seconds in an elevator and someone says, why shouldn't we just defund university libraries and let them use Amazon? Like, what's your 30 seconds?
So a student's not going to have access to a librarian like Steve Johnson and Nisha through Amazon. That face-to-face faculty interaction. It would be the same reason why Amazon can't deliver quality education that faculty in this room provide the students at USD. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, guys. Well done.